Wow. It's great to be here, and my first time in Vegas, believe it or not. Wonderful, wonderful to see you all. I will have, it's my privilege and my honor to present to you today, and I will have some good news, and I will have something wonderful to say about what we are doing. However, I have to a little bit give you the bad news first and keep you in suspense a little bit longer. We've just seen a video. I think you saw the facts and figures. It's frightening. We are living today in an era of the so-called chronic diseases or lifestyle-related diseases. We're not getting many things right. We're not balancing our food intake with our energy output, to put it in scientific terms. So we're over-consuming and we're not moving enough. And it's clear, we're living a different kind of life today than we did many, many years ago. We used to be more physically active. But what's happening in the world, and it's developed nations, developing nations, the problem is one and the same, that we are subject to lifestyle-related conditions. So the choices we make are not keeping us healthy. Just right now, in 2017, facts and figures were published by the Center for Disease Control. And shocking, we have a health crisis. We have now 30.2 million US adults affected with diabetes of both types. But in that number, you have about between 90 and 95% of type 2 diabetes. So, those figures are really big. Big segment of the population is affected. And as we also saw just now, the numbers for US adults affected with pre-diabetes are staggering, really, really staggering. About a third of the population over 18. And the other frightening thing is that actually people are not aware how they've lost control of their health. They're not always aware that they're progressing from this healthy state to what we call pre-diabetes, or otherwise we call it metabolic syndrome. Just to show a little bit the facts and figures, these facts and figures refer to the numbers of diagnosed diabetes. But actually, in all the statistics and all the reports, it's mentioned that about 25% of people do not know that they have diabetes type 2. And diabetes, as you saw, is a diabetes type 2. The numbers are staggering. It's a great health concern, but it's also a great financial burden for all the economies around the world. So it's not just the US, it's Europe. The facts and figures are there. And the World Health Organization and other authorities, the Center for Disease Control, diabetes organizations, they're all giving out advice about how to live a healthier lifestyle, how to prevent diabetes. So a lot of public health warnings, a lot of guidelines are being given out. But generally speaking, unfortunately, we're not following those guidelines. And, we're not finding time to change the way we're living our lives. We're not organizing ourselves. So it is a tremendous burden, a financial burden, a health burden around the world. Developed or developing nations, they are being affected, and governments are starting to try to take action. As I mentioned, diabetes is a chronic disease, and it's something that actually it's not something that you get affected by overnight. It's a long-term progression. It's a long-term progression from a state of health to a state that that our doctors associate with diabetes. So it's changes in what it really is it's a long-term change in our ability to regulate our blood glucose. And other factors are, of course, causing this loss of ability to regulate blood glucose. So, generally speaking, it's not something, that happens overnight. Progression to diabetes can take years, but being aware of your health is very, very important. And being aware that you are doing the right thing in your life, in your daily routine, to control your blood glucose and to stay within healthy ranges is extremely important. So if we look a little bit about the data, so diabetes type 2, it's one of those chronic diseases that's caused, in many cases, not always, by the kind of lifestyle we lead. And the excess burden, I'll just come back here, but the excess burden of sort of the food, the excess burden of calories and the imbalance of calories taken in and calories expended in terms of physical activity. It's known that if you, for example, you follow a diet, or if your daily diet is heavily loaded with processed foods, excess fats, excess sugars, you're going to cause a kind of metabolic stress to your body, and you're going to actually accelerate the negative effects on your overall metabolism. So you're going to lose your ability. You're going to lose your ability to control your blood glucose, and you're going to overwhelm your body. I mean, the good news is that healthy lifestyles can reduce the chances of progressing to diabetes type 2 by as much as 58%. And this has been published by the American Diabetes Association and other organizations, that there's a great value to combining the right food choices, so whole food nutrients, with good weight management and physical activity. So does this seem familiar? Does this seem really familiar to you? The message is, it's not rocket science. This is what we should all be doing, and trying to do this every day. But it's not always that simple. It really is not. I'm just going to go back to this previous slide with the figures. Because with our lifestyle, we try to stay in that healthy zone. Stress, that's going to increase our blood glucose automatically. If we eat, for example, in the evening, and we have a normal balanced meal, and we go to bed, we have a good night's sleep, we get up in the morning, and we expect that our blood glucose should be in the healthy, normal range. So that's, sorry for the facts and figures, but 100 milligrams per deciliter, that's what your doctor will tell you. If you find you wake up in the morning and you are pushing on, 100, 125 or beyond, or more than 125, there may be something stressful that's caused it. Don't get me wrong, it's not just a one-off measurement, but if you continually find that you have a high blood glucose in the morning, it might be a sign that things are going a little bit wrong with your blood glucose control. And so there are other things that doctors do to actually work out where you are on the scale of health to disease. And there's sort of a cluster of risk factors that are considered when a doctor is looking at to try to decide if you're pre-diabetic or if you have metabolic syndrome. And there's a lot of discussion about what really matters. But just a couple of things are mentioned here, and the values after, a doctor would sometimes do an oral glucose tolerance test to see how you deal with a big shot of glucose. How does your body cope with it? How can your body really regulate blood glucose if you receive a big oral level of blood of glucose, a glucose syrup given as a test substance? How does your body deal with that? Are you a good blood glucose regulator? And they also measure something called glycated hemoglobin. Now, that's just one thing that indicates that high blood glucose can start to damage your blood, your tissues. So it's glucose, continual high blood glucose. If it's occurring with you, it can start to react with your body tissues and damage those tissues. And one measure that is a measure of whether somebody is progressing along that curve along the continuum to disease is this value for glycated hemoglobin. So you're progressing probably over a number of years. It's not an instant thing, and it's something that you have chance to change, and you have chance to take action by doing the right things and living a healthier lifestyle. Chronic disease. Yes, we've discussed it, and we've discussed it many times over the last decade since I've been around, and probably the decades before. It was one of those things that the Scientific Advisory Board at NeoLife were always aware of, and they saw this escalating crisis. What has always been designed into our products are the basic elements that help combat what we call low-grade inflammation in the body and oxidation in the body, which are destructive forces that are, if you like, they're going wrong with every kind of chronic disease you're affected with. If we think of going back to that situation of stressing the body and having too many calories, becoming overweight or even obese increases the likelihood that you've overwhelmed the body's regulation systems and that you've you've unbalanced the immune system. And what we know very clearly from the science is that all chronic diseases are linked by the fact that there's an ongoing low-grade inflammation in the body. Destructive forces that unbalance your body's regulation system, and your body's immune system gets unbalanced. So over the last probably 2 to 3 decades, NeoLife SAB have been designing products that balance inflammation. So they've designed into the whole food supplements, they've designed products that bear in mind we need to protect the body from this low-grade inflammation, because that unifies the problems within chronic, when we develop chronic disease and chronic conditions, like obviously heart health conditions, like diabetes type 2, like stroke. They're all unified by this ongoing low-grade inflammation. And so it's been a theme within our design of products to integrate inflammation-balancing nutrients and phytonutrients. So we have products in the core nutrition range that address those issues of balancing inflammation. So, we've reiterated this message again and again. What's very, very important to realize is that when you have a high blood glucose, it perpetuates the ongoing low-grade inflammation and adds to the damage. It's a hallmark so diabetes type 2 has an associated inflammation as its hallmark. And over 100 years ago, that was identified. as a link also with diabetes type 2, as things going wrong with the metabolism. So there's a lot to consider, and there's a lot that we can do right with good nutrition. So coming back to that slide, losing body weight, that makes a big difference too to overall ability to have a healthy metabolism. It affects your blood fats in a very positive way, and it also affects the way you can deal with your blood glucose, the way you can regulate your blood glucose. So definitely losing weight, being active, very strongly supported in terms of putting these into lifestyle intervention programs. Everything that NeoLife has been talking about and has designed into the Be Your Best Challenge, it considers these points. So it's part of our philosophy to look at all the elements that are important in keeping a healthy metabolism. And that healthy metabolism will assure you that you have better blood glucose control. So moving on, yes. The typical American diet. Too many hamburgers, though they are not always bad. We don't want to forbid everything all the time. It's about moderation. But for sure, too many sugary drinks, too much being a couch potato, as we call it in Europe. I think that maybe that's your expression. It's coming directly from the US and it's gone over to Europe, but couch potato is very famous over there. So, this lack of activity and lack of balance, it's also aggravated by other things we do. Not sleeping enough, maybe we're stressing about work, we have financial worries, maybe not at NeoLife. But the stress causes glucose imbalance combined with these other things and the overwhelming burden that we put on our bodies through bad foods, processed foods, too many calories, too much sugar, too much processed fats, all bad, creating this sort of feeling that, we're losing control, and we wake up in the morning and we're drifting along that zone from green to yellow, and we hope not. We hope not to go down that road of, the road towards the horrible end result of diabetes type 2. So there's so much action that you can take to prevent that progression from health to disease. And of course, being very insightful, as the NeoLife SAB have always been, and that's way before the last decade, NeoLife have been aware of the need to keep blood glucose within a steady range, the importance of that to your overall metabolism, the importance of that for regulating your body weight and to keeping you full and to keep your signals working properly, because it's about the signals that your food can send out to your body in order to keep healthy. So basically, we have designed in products like NeoLife Shake, and before that, GR2, we designed and we clinically tested the products that were balanced nutritionally and that help people not have the spikes of blood sugar caused by too much load of of sugars going into the body at once. So we designed healthy weight management products like NeoLife Shake, high in protein, containing fiber, containing healthy fats, not too much sugar, a little bit of sugar, but very, very little sugar. So healthier products that give a good, what we call glycemic control. So good control over your blood glucose, steady energy release, and satiety, fiber to keep you full for longer. And what we know is that we know from experience, all of you have used the products for many, many years, that it helps sort of give you steady energy through the day, and it stops you having these peaks and troughs, what we call the glycemic roller coaster. So we've been very, very aware of the need to control blood glucose, because glucose, high blood glucose, is a damaging force, and we need to keep glucose at this very steady level to have the right energy for the body and, of course, the brain, because the brain relies so much on glucose. You know, you've all experienced how you feel if you suddenly have, that shakiness, that dizziness, not enough blood glucose, because you've hit a trough, because you've had a load of sugar, and your hormones have responded, and then you've hit a trough. You've lost control. It's important to have a steady release of energy at the level of absorption, and that's what we've learned a lot about within our weight management program. And all the testimonies of using the product with great results. NeoLife Shake, I've heard already in a day, I've heard so much good news about using the products. So I'm eventually getting over to what well, we had some good news. And now we're having even more good news, I have to say. We started to think, how do we go beyond the level of glucose control at the level of digestion and absorption with our glycemic response technology? We've started to see, so we've been watching this for, at least the last decade. What other ingredients out there are starting to have scientific publications about helping the body manage glucose levels, blood glucose levels, about helping the body against the low-grade inflammation, the destructive forces. And so we've been monitoring with the SAB. We've had our eyes on a number of ingredients for a few years. Just to emphasize here, we want to say, the body needs to regulate glucose, I've already said, within this tight range. And there are particular organs in the body that have a really important role to play. Of course, we take in carbohydrate and we absorb, we digest the stomach, and we absorb from the intestine, we absorb sugars. And then the body has mechanisms, it senses the arrival of glucose. And the pancreas, this is the organ, it's actually usually hidden behind the stomach. Most diagrams don't have it on because it's kind of hidden behind the stomach. But it produces the hormone insulin that responds to the arrival of glucose in the bloodstream. And there are a number of other ways that the body senses glucose in the blood. So glucose is a key fuel, and it needs to be regulated. It's, within this tight range for us to stay healthy. It's a fuel for body cells in a big way. It's the major fuel for most of our body cells. We can also use fats as fuel, but we rely a lot on glucose for our energy. So basically, the pancreas responds. Message is there. Pancreas produces the hormone insulin, and we get the carbohydrate, the sugars arriving to the liver. So the liver is a real key organ as well for control of blood glucose. It's like the hub. What happens after we've eaten a meal, and then the glucose comes along in the blood and goes to the liver, and the liver decides what needs to be done. Are we going to store it here, or are we going to shunt it out? Is there a requirement for energy? So the liver, shunts it out when needed to our muscles, it ends up somehow in our fat cell, within our fat cells too. So it can get used by a variety of body cells, or get used as energy. But that's under control from the major hormone insulin. But also, I just mentioned there just referring there to the hormone insulin produced by the pancreas, but there's also another key hormone. So moving on, there we have the role of insulin working. So you eat the meal, and pancreas responds. It's essentially what I've just said. Things go to the glucose goes to the liver, get redistribution for energy. If you, sorry, it's getting so technical, but we have to give it a bash and explain this whole body blood glucose. And by the way, this is a real simplification. It's a real simplification because there are other hormones involved, as many of you will know. There's another key hormone, though, that the liver produces, the pancreas produces, and that's glucagon. So if we get up in the morning and we haven't eaten overnight, we haven't been up snacking or anything, during the night, snacking might not be a good thing. But, we haven't eaten, and the body says, I'm a bit low on glucose, I'm feeling a bit shaky, and that's when glucagon, the other hormone that's also produced in the pancreas, that's when that hormone sets things into action. So it can release from the stores of energy, it can release glucose to keep those blood glucose levels in a tight, controlled manner. So there we go. Yes. You may have seen I'm a biochemist, but this does not look like a biochemical diagram. It's a different kind of diagram. So we want to get that energy to the cells, but what's really happening in the bloodstream? What's happening is that the hormone insulin has a key role to play to deliver glucose from the blood inside the cells. So if we press along, oh, it's doing its thing, yeah. And then it's tipping in. So, and then we get energy, hopefully. So that's what happens. Glucose needs insulin to work properly. There is a thing called a glucose receptor. I won't get into the biochemistry of that because there's all different kinds of those. But there are some key glucose receptors on the surface of the cell that also recognize, they can be altered by what we're eating, in fact. The phytonutrients and the nutrients we eat, they can alter the quality and the way the glucose receptor responds. We know that from much published research. So to keep your body healthy, you need also to keep these receptors healthy. And good nutrition helps with that. It's amazingly interesting when you go into the background, but another day. Yeah. So, finally, we've completed some of the sciencey bit, and I'm so sorry for that. Trying to get this whole body glucose message over, but yes, we want to go beyond glycemic response technology, and we want to bring to you in one product ingredients that seem to be getting established for their role in blood glucose management, in the whole body blood glucose management, in keeping blood glucose at those healthy levels. So we've been following literature, and we've put together a product which combines 5 ingredients together, and we believe this is going to give broad spectrum action to support your blood glucose management. So what is in there, right? You all want to know. So we've, as you know, within our SAB, we have quite a bit of interest and experience in sourcing of botanicals or plant-based ingredients. We have quite a bit of history and heritage there. Now, we've been observing particularly what's going on with cinnamon, the spice, with turmeric. It's the root that you've probably heard so much about. Many of you, I'm sure, are using it in your cuisine. And curcumin is an extract from turmeric root. So it's a concentrated form of turmeric. Now, what is surprising, or maybe not, about those spices is that they're all quite rich in polyphenols. So here again, our scientific heritage, knowledge about polyphenols being built into yet another product. So we have a trio, maybe a duo, because the curcumin and turmeric are really one and the same, more or less concentrated. So we have a trio of spices used traditionally in Chinese and Indian medicine, and we've been following the literature about just how they're really giving great support to our control of healthy blood glucose levels. So we have a great new product to talk about. We're going to be talking about it again tomorrow. You're going to be able to ask, probably some discrete questions. But we're going to be talking more, and I'm actually looking for the interests of time. My clock is not running down, and I'm still at 40 minutes, which is where I was when I started. So maybe I've got all day, who knows? Maybe we are in a, time is not advancing, so we're in a good place, but I will do my best to be efficient right now. But yes, we've designed a product bringing to you whole food sourced ingredients, and again, combining, if you like, ancient wisdom, modern science brought into a brand new product, a wonderful product that will help with that battle to control and basically keep your blood glucose healthy. So we've got cinnamon, curcumin, turmeric. Very nice. I'm sure most of you are using these in your own cookery. So just a little bit of background on each ingredient in turn. We have cinnamon. Now, we're seeing more and more publications about the value of cinnamon in being able to control, to keep you at healthy, what we call fasting blood glucose levels, as well as healthy after meal blood glucose levels. There's starting to be human publications from human studies showing the support of cinnamon for blood glucose management. And it seems also that cinnamon might also help the liver, help the pancreas in dealing with blood glucose. So there are publications emerging which are very, very promising. And we were encouraged, and we know that the polyphenols, and it's called cinnamic acid, one of the key actives, it's basically actually doing something also at the level of absorption of glucose. So it's limiting sugar absorption to a certain degree. So very, very interesting. And it might also be involved in keeping healthy, keeping your blood fats healthier too. So research is ongoing, but it seems to be doing a lot of good things. Turmeric, curcumin. Now, we've been astounded by how many publications there are relating to all kinds of chronic diseases and the protective effects of turmeric and curcumin, due mainly to their polyphenol substances, the curcuminoids. So what we've done is we've integrated into the product, as you know, quality, the quality, the purity, the potency, the efficacy. Mark Lohman, in his work, has endeavored over the last 22 years, actually, 22 years of experience, bringing in this ability to standardize ingredients, standardize the levels of polyphenols in the products. So that's really what we have with this combination of cinnamon, turmeric, curcumin. We have, it's not just about some random ingredients put in there. It's about really knowing what you've got in the product and knowing what those polyphenols do. So it's, very standardized product, as you know, that's the quality that you've come to expect over the years, and you obviously, it's a really top priority for us. So curcumin and turmeric as well are, really becoming known in the scientific literature to have very strong inflammation protecting effects. But we almost don't talk about how protective they are because, you go into the realms of, if they work, then how can they be nutritional? So we get a little bit worried when we talk about just how good they are, but they are very good, and I'm sure you're very aware of this science that has emerged. So supporting as well, perhaps possibly supporting the way insulin works, protecting the pancreas that has to work so hard to produce those hormones to balance your glucose. It gets damaged by the stress of being overwhelmed by too many calories coming in, too much high blood glucose. It actually stresses the pancreas. And, any support we can give to our organs from good nutrients in our diet is worth it. And we've seen those publications coming out. I'm not saying, this is totally proven, but regarding the organ support, we don't talk about it. But actually, there's some very good science coming out, even this year, about just how polyphenol substances can also help the pancreas. And that's one of the things that packs up when, you go down the road of diabetes. You've over-challenged your pancreas. So we've also got a couple of, as you know, how we design these products. And, John Miller, he's not here, unfortunately, today. He has done a brilliant job to put this association of ingredients together. And, of course, we have discussed this in the team at the SAB. And we had decided some time ago to put in chromium, because chromium is also a renowned trace mineral that supports directly the function of the hormone insulin, and that's been known for many, many years. So you can help with your blood glucose management by making sure that you have healthy chromium levels. I read somewhere that up to 90% of Americans are a bit low in chromium. Now, it's different countries in the world, they have different, it relates sometimes to the quality of the food, the level of chromium you get in the soil, that influences what you get into the food products that you have in your daily diet. But, something so important, we don't want to have a low level, do we? It's so key to how insulin works. So we put chromium in as well, and we also put in something you may have heard of from Trey, alpha-lipoic acid. It's a very, very essential antioxidant in all your body cells, and it's very protective, very supportive of getting energy, the process whereby you oxidize glucose, you burn glucose to get energy. It supports that process in a big way. And there are quite a few studies coming out about how, alpha-lipoic acid is playing a role in, preventing that progression towards prediabetes and diabetes. So we're starting to read literature, actually from the 90s. I remember, I shouldn't say, I'm not going to talk about the 80s, but I do remember in the 90s quite a strong recognition of alpha-lipoic acid in preventing some of the damaging effects that are associated with that progression of diabetes type 2. So, the harmful reactions, the glucose reacting with the body tissues, the body proteins, destructive reactions that perpetuates the problems, whether it's your circulation or whether it's your hemoglobin. It seems to be there's been a lot of attention on alpha-lipoic acid, and it's something naturally present in some fruits and vegetables, and of course in spinach. But a little bit more, it's probably a very good thing for most of us. So we designed that into the product. So there we go. We're almost there. I'm on 3 minutes 49. We have a product. It's going beyond, we think, the glycemic response technology. It's using holistic, traditional ingredients that we've read so much about and that have been used in our traditional Indian and Chinese cuisine. We've seen a lot of literature about these products, that these ingredients are really working. So now we've brought them all together, and we want to provide that extra support for your your efforts to keep in that healthy blood glucose zone, so to support your total blood glucose management. So yeah, in a nutshell, it's not just supporting blood glucose management, it's also protecting against those destructive forces associated with all chronic diseases, I would say. So, inflammation balancing ingredients, ingredients that support your efforts to manage blood glucose. So we're striving to go, to keep at the frontier of knowledge and to bring you these products in a timely manner when we believe, that we don't want to hold back. We want to, we want to bring it to you, and we want you to start to benefit from this wonderful new product. So it just remains for me to say, yes, finding balance, glucose balance, extremely important for staying, keeping at your optimal health, being your best, along with, of course, all the other things that doing the other things, a healthy lifestyle will also assist you in your endeavor to find your balance and keep control of your blood glucose. So here we are, here we have it, and I'm just going to say thank you very, very much for being a great audience, and I'm going to